Welcome, everybody, to the Week 7 live show of the Primetime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, in the hopes that we help you prevail this week, today, and every week throughout the 2021 fantasy football season. I am your host, Nick Giacobbe, and joining me is Nick Capsalis. Nick, how are you feeling going into Week 7?
Jets coming off the bye, but going into New England. That's not fun. Recovery from a bye week. So
I mean, you
not
know what
looking
that
forward
is?
to the week,
That's
and a
a
lot of bye weeks this week. So
that's a Patriots defense kind of game for
oh yeah,
fantasy purposes, at
big
least.
time,
Um,
big time.
if this is their
Last
first
time,
time,
last time 4 interceptions from Zach Wilson against the
oh yeah,
Patriots,
yeah,
and
that's
that
a
was
big
in
time play today.
MetLife.
If you have the Patriots defense on your waiver wire, this is the time to slot them right into your lineups. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. We do this live show every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time to around 11:30ish most weeks, depending on if we have any guests or anything else. But it's usually about a half hour, 40 minutes, right when that injury news does come out. We like to give you tips for your lineups. We'll go through each game, and we want to answer your questions. So if you have any questions right now, throw them in the chat. If you have any questions for the next 30 minutes, throw them in the chat, whether it's this week, next week, and anytime on. We do the show on our YouTube, our Twitter, and our Facebook. YouTube is Primetime Fantasy Podcast, Twitter, Primetime FF Pod, and Facebook, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you enjoyed the live show, check out the audio and video versions of the shows throughout the week on Tuesdays and Fridays. The audio version you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, basically anywhere where you can find your podcasts. If you are on Apple, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It definitely does go a long way and helps us out. If you want to watch the video version of the podcast on Tuesday and Friday, you could find that on our YouTube channel, Primetime Fantasy Podcast. If you want to support us on other social media, TikTok and Instagram is Primetime FF Pod. Alrighty, Nick, we have some injury news that we have to talk about. So let's see what we got here. We do have Darren Waller. It was announced last night from Adam Schefter that he's dealing with a lot of pain in his ankle. I believe he said it does not look good or doesn't feel good. So it does seem like Waller could be out today against the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Nick, if you have Darren Waller in your lineup, this is a problem. The waiver wire is probably already ripped apart when it comes to tight ends. Probably really slim pickings right there. Who's a guy that you would have to pick up today to play ahead of Darren Waller?
I mean, all the guys that should have been picked up are probably gone by now. I mean, Ricky Seals was a good one this past week. Zack Ertz, if he was still there, should have been picked up. Hunter Henry might still be there. You could take your shot on him. Maybe if you want to roll the dice on Jonnu in this favorable matchup, you do
I would
that.
play Hunter Henry over Jonnu every single week.
Yeah, me
Jonnu, I don't
too.
think is playable. I don't think Jonnu's playable at this point.
I mean, I wouldn't even know who else that would be there. I mean, most of the other guys are on bye. I mean, you got Knox on bye, Schultz is on bye. Um, who else?
I'm looking at
Jared
our
Cook.
waiver wire. Robert Tunyon, Foster Moreau, who's the backup in Vegas, Gerald Everett for the
You probably have
Seahawks, Jonnu Smith,
if
Cameron
Tunyon's there, you
Brate.
probably play him and just hope that he finds the touchdown like he did last year. But that's not been the case this year at all. So I don't know. I really don't know. It really would. Honestly, I'd look at your waiver and I'd see who had the highest projection and just say, screw it, I'm rolling with them.
I think I may play Evan Ingram. He's gotten 6 targets, 2 weeks, 4 targets, and 5. Doesn't really catch every target, but he's getting the volume, and the Giants are going to be without a couple receivers that we'll talk about in a second. If Evan Ingram could catch like 4 balls and score a touchdown, that might be your guy. So I think he's a guy I would target on the waiver wire. I know he's a pain in the ass when it comes to dropping the ball and all that, but I think he's one that I would kind of target. As for those Giants, Sterling Shepard needs to test his hammy pregame. He had limited practice on it with Thursday and Friday. I think he missed the last 2 weeks, I believe. He missed at least 1 week. Darius Slayton also has a hammy, but he should be good to go. He's questionable, but I believe he is good to go. We know that Kadarius Toney is out, Saquon Barkley's out, and Kenny Golladay is out. So that's one reason why I did suggest Evan Ingram. And I mean, they're going up against the Panthers this week, Nick. Is Sterling Shepard, if he is playing, is he a guy that you're kind of targeting for your flex spots?
Absolutely. I mean, they're so dinged up everywhere where there's going to have to be someone that catches the ball, and Shepard's been a good volume target guy for most of the year when he's healthy. So the concern should go right away. That's a case where volume will outperform your opponent. It'll outperform the skill level of the receiver. Regardless, it's kind of like a Deontay Johnson role where it doesn't matter how talented the guy is, you just get so much workload where every week he's going to put up production. So if Shepard's in there, you got to slot him in at your flex spot.
Daniel Jones also likes him a lot. It seems like he's his favorite target. So I think if he's playing on the field and Jones has to throw to somebody, he's the guy that will get the majority of the targets. I would not play Darius Slayton. I just maybe if he's the wide receiver one and Shepard's out, but I just feel like he's kind of boomer bust. He needs that big play to kind of get in the end zone. And if not, it's just he's not going to score a lot of points in your flex spot. For the Bucs, Antonio Brown is out with an ankle injury. Rob Gronkowski is still out. What does that mean for the rest of those receivers, Nick? Whether it's Mike Evans, whether it's Chris Godwin and playoff Lenny, and anybody else that you might even consider playing from those receiver spots?
So Tyler Johnson, he's someone that's probably on your waiver wire. He's only owned in I think like 2 or 3% of leagues. If you need a 1 week rental with how many guys are on bye this week, slot him in. The bigger concern in week 3 when Antonio Brown missed was that they were splitting Scotty Miller and his role as a wide receiver 3. But Scotty Miller just hit the IR and he's going to be out for multiple weeks. There's no concern of him playing, and Johnson's going to be guaranteed that wide receiver 3 role. If you really, really, really need to play someone, that's a guy I would consider rolling out. But the rest of those receivers I'm not concerned about. They had no problem moving the ball in week 3 without AB, and they had no problem last year for the first 8 or 9 weeks before AB. So the concern is completely mitigated, and I wouldn't be worried at all.
I think he's a great daily fantasy play, Johnson. I think he's a sneaky play. He's probably not a lot of money. I would have to check his exact value, but I think he would be a good play considering the situation with the Bucs and that he is a wide receiver 3, and Brady does like to spread the ball around. So I think he's one guy that could be considered for daily fantasy. And we talked about Antonio Brown and his production in the field. If you have Antonio Brown in your lineups every week, you're missing somebody now. You're missing your wide receiver. You probably drafted him as a wide receiver 3, but he's playing like a wide receiver 2. So, you're missing somebody in your lineup for sure. Antonio Gibson has played through a hairline fracture in his shin. That doesn't sound great. And I believe in the last 4 weeks, he had a stinker last week. He was in and out of the game with injuries. But then he also had, I believe, a 20-point game, a 20-point game, and a 16. I'd have to double check that. But he's been productive through this injury. And it's a shame because I believe if he was fully healthy and he was getting more of a workload in the passing game, he would be a top 10 fantasy back, which is where you probably drafted him at. He's not been terrible. It's just the injury has bothered him, and he really hasn't shined. He's the running back 17 right now. His scores are 11, 9, 17, 15, 21, and 4. That's not somebody that you drafted in rounds, 2, maybe even late round 1 if you're in a 12-man league or something like that. So unfortunately, the injury has kind of hindered him a bit, and the football team's a total mess. But going forward, Nick, are you comfortable playing Antonio Gibson knowing that he has played through this injury or is still playing through this injury? And I think he has another injury too. I think he has a hip injury, or I forget the other one. I don't know if you remember the other one, but I think there's another injury that he has.
I'm kind of removed on Gibson. I'm too concerned. Where you drafted him, the problem is he has no ceiling. Well, he has a ceiling because J.D. McKissic still has a prominent role in that offense. If you're in a full PPR league, Antonio Gibson is on his round 2 draft pick. There were better players drafted after Joe, some of those wide receivers that would be putting up better numbers than him, right? You would be very disappointed in what you have, but he's seeing double-digit targets every week, even with the injury. Not double-digit targets, double-digit touches every single week from the running back position. So he offers a safe enough floor where he's going to get production. He's going to put some points on the board. The problem is the passing game is still J.D. McKissic. And I don't think he's seen more than 3 targets all year long. That's a problem for a prominent running back in a more pass-heavy offense than a run-the-ball offense. With a team that's playing from behind, J.D. McKissic seeing the field 40+% of snaps. That should not be happening if Antonio Gibson is as good as Jonathan Taylor or any of those other top-tier RB1s. So for Gibson, he's a high-end RB2 rest of season. If he was your RB1 because you drafted Devontae Adams in the first round, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, you're kind of stunted at the running back position.
Yeah, that's the bigger issue now when it comes to Antonio Gibson. I'm actually playing J.D. McKissick in one league that I have some bye issues, and that's my dynasty league that J.K. Dobbins is injured in or is out in. So I lost my running back too. So I'm kind of deciding between J.D. McKissick and Alex Collins. I believe I'm playing McKissick in my running back too, and I'm playing Collins in my flex because I benched OBJ because not a great week, and Amari Cooper is on bye. So that team is not looking great. For this week, I have Collins in my flex, and if for some reason he doesn't play, I have to slot in Marquez Callaway. Last bit of injury news. Trey Lance is out. Jimmy G is in. This is a really interesting situation because I think Trey Lance would have been starting throughout the rest of the season, and we would have never seen Jimmy G in a 49ers uniform again. But Trey Lance kind of had a dud last week, or when did he play? He did play. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. They were on bye. Yeah, they were on bye. So the last game he played, he had a dud. Could be Jimmy G's team again. He's on Sunday Night Football against the Colts, which is an absolutely gross game. The only reason I'm watching that game over the Knicks on the big TV is because of Jonathan Taylor. So gross game. I have no interest in it. I don't really like the 49ers as a football team, whether it's a fantasy perspective or an actual football team because of those guys. The Colts to me just scream average. They're just an average football team. There's nothing fun about the Colts. There's no Wentz is playing well, but there's no fun quarterback. They don't Taylor isn't even like super fun to watch. Like I like him all, but he's not like Derrick Henry, where you're like, oh, I'm gonna go watch Derrick Henry because he's gonna bulldoze 12 people. I'm gonna go watch McCaffrey because I know he's gonna catch a long 80-yard, bomb, not bomb per se, but skirting through defenders. There's nothing really fun about Jonathan Taylor. He's just a good running back. So there's nothing to really watch this game for, in my opinion, besides it's football. And there's probably not a lot of fantasy players involved in it either. Jonathan Taylor, obviously, first round pick in most leagues. Who's the Colts receiver that you love a lot? What's his name?
Michael Pittman.
Yeah, Pittman's been great. Pittman's been a great flex starter. He's the guy that you're probably starting. Wentz is probably being started in a good amount of leagues. Russell Wilson injured and a couple people on bye, so Wentz is startable. And on the 49ers side, it's only Deebo Samuel. There's nobody else that you could start on that side. So Sunday Night Football, I want no part of it. But anyway, Nick, what's the repercussions of Jimmy Garoppolo starting for these 49ers?
Jimmy G is a better quarterback for the wide receiver, tight end, running back position, purely because Trey Lance likes to use his legs a lot more than Jimmy G. So, you're going to get checkdowns to running backs again where Trey Lance will run. You're going to get, the tight end catching the ball 5-10 yards down the field where Trey Lance could roll out of the pocket and extend for a bigger play. That's the upside that Trey Lance offers you. From a fantasy perspective, I don't think Jimmy G. You could play him. The Colts let up a ton of big play games early in the year, so he's definitely playable in a very favorable matchup for them. But I don't see too much concern from any of the other positions. I actually see it being more beneficial from a fantasy perspective. I just think Trey Lance is better for the team and a better fantasy quarterback than Jimmy G will be, just because of his work with his legs. It's kind of like a Jalen Hurts situation where, he's not the most talented passer yet, but with his legs, he's so dominant where he can put you up a top 5 week with having 150, 200 passing yards without a problem.
Yeah. All right. We're going to go game by game now and tell you which players we would start, which players we would bench. So let's start off with the Washington football team and the Green Bay Packers. Give me 2 players you would start and 2 players you would bench in this one.
I like Terry McLaurin every single week. You got to play him. No concern there. Another guy I like is Ricky Seals-Jones, the tight end out of Washington. He is the position clearly showed where Logan Thomas isn't the most talented tight end in the world. He was a quarterback converted to a tight end and saw production. So it is definitely the role that is more of what works in Washington versus the talent that's there. So I like Ricky Seals-Jones going forward. I would bench, let's see. I would bench. Yeah, you do your 2 start, and I'll think about 2 players I bench.
2 start to me, Devontae Adams. You start this guy every single week. And I'll do J.D. McKissick. The Packers have not been great against the run. Or running backs in general. We saw Khalil Herbert, who's the third string running back on the Bears, rack up 17 fantasy points. Could have had a little bit more if he hit that 100-yard bonus. He had 97 yards. He had a touchdown. He had a couple receptions too. So I think McKissick's a guy that's very playable in this one as a running back too in a flex spot, depending on what situation you're in. If you have Christian McCaffrey's out with an injury, he's a guy you could slot in. Chris Carson's out on the IR. He's a guy you could slot in. In my situation, I've had J.K. Dobbins out, so I'm kind of choosing between Javonte Williams, who had a great game Thursday night, Alex Collins, and McKissick, and I'm choosing McKissick this week. So I think McKissick's a good start, as well as obviously Devontae Adams. As for the players that you would bench, I'm going Packers wide receivers, and I'm going football team wide receivers. You're not starting Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You're not. I don't even know if he's playing. He might be injured still. You're not playing Randall Cobb. You're not playing. I'll throw Alan Lazard, Robert Tonyan. I'll throw him in there too. You're not starting him. Unless you really need to if you're in a Darren Waller situation. Curtis Samuel's out with an injury, and I don't even remember the other receivers on that football team.
Humphries.
So Humphries, yeah, you're not starting Humphries, so I'm not starting any of them in that game.
The other person I would bench, the only other person I could think of that I would bench is Taylor Heineke. For some reason, people think that he's startable in leagues. The dude's got practically no talent at the quarterback position. I'm sorry to all you Washington fans if I'm insulting you. He's not a good quarterback whatsoever. And even though it's a favorable matchup, it's a very favorable running back matchup. So I trust Gibson, and I would trust McKissick to have bigger games than Heineke. Come on, I don't care about who you have on bye. That's not the matchup you want to play.
No, it's not. It's just a bad matchup. How about Chiefs Titans? 2 guys you're starting, 2 guys you're benching.
I am starting McCole Hardman this week. Practically, mostly because I kind of have to, because of the situation in my league. But McCole Hardman offers such a deep threat, and Tennessee lets receivers over the top. Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman should have absolutely massive weeks. And the other guy I'm playing at, and I'll play someone from Tennessee. AJ Brown's obviously locked into your lineup. I'll shoot my shot on Ryan Tannehill. Maybe he gets back in the top 10. No Herbert this week. No Josh Allen. No Big Ben. No, who else is on bye this week? I
forget in the notes unless I deleted it. Yeah,
I forget the other guys, but there's a good amount of quarterbacks on bye that have talent that usually finish in that top 10 spot. Tannehill was someone you drafted to finish as the QB9, QB10. You just trusted him to be consistent enough. And with 6 quarterbacks on bye this week, Kansas City has done a horrendous job stopping anybody from passing the ball. So I would trust him to have a massive game this week in what should be a shootout.
And what about the people that you are benching? You want me to do mine first?
Yeah,
I'll do. Daryl Williams is my big one. The Titans are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Given up the 8th most fantasy points to running backs. They've given up roughly 20.9 per game. Daryl Williams had 25 plus last week. I forget the yardage number that he had, but I think it was close to 100 yards. I know he had 2 touchdowns. Daryl Williams outplayed Clyde Edwards-Helaire's production when it comes to a season perspective. I think we could see a running back by committee approach when Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes back. They could just ride the hot hand when it comes to the situation. Over a year and a half span, Edwards-Helaire hasn't been the Kansas City running back that we've seen for the past 10 years. Jamal Charles was an absolute monster. Then they eventually found Kareem Hunt for 2 years, and he was an absolute monster. He helped me win a fantasy football championship. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted in the first round to kind of assume that role, and he really hasn't. So we could see a running back by committee approach, and for the next 2 weeks, definitely Daryl Williams should be locked into every single fantasy lineup. Unless you have, I don't even know. If you have, let's say you have Dalvin Cook and James Robinson as your running backs 1 and 2, and your receivers are like my friend Tom. Your receivers are Chase, Evans, Marquise Brown, Cooper Kupp. To the point where you can't play Daryl Williams in even a flex spot. If your team is that good, then yes, you're not starting him, but he should be started in most leagues. So Daryl Williams to me is going to be a big start this week. So he's my first one. My second start is going to be AJ Brown. I think he's getting in a groove. He had 15 points last week. The Chiefs defense is not great. If the Titans want to keep this game close or win the game, they're going to have to throw the ball a bit. And I think AJ Brown has to have a big game for that passing attack to elevate itself. On the other side of the ball, I'm benching Julio Jones. I don't know how long he's going to play in this game. He's injury prone. something you got to say now. He's kind of a shell of his former self. He could go out there and put up 102 tutties any week. However, with that position being as deep as it is, I don't know how much you could trust Julio Jones.
I think I would start Julio if you are in need of a flex position that can go flat out win you this game this week. Like I will tell you, in one league, this is my bench because of buys or injuries. I have CeeDee Lamb, Stephon Diggs, Amari Cooper, Najee Harris, Christian McCaffrey, Michael Thomas. That's my 6-man bench in the league. My starting lineup is practically all guys I had to pick up off my waiver wire. If you have to shoot your shot and you have Julio on there, roll him out there.
All right, next game, Panthers and Giants.
I saw a lot of people saying Devontae Booker doesn't have a good matchup. With all the injuries, I trust Booker going out there. He's going to get a guaranteed workload in a game against the defense that has not been able to stop the other teams in the past few weeks. And Darnold's turned the ball over in favorable position for running backs. So he presents a high touchdown floor. So I'm not concerned about Devontae Booker whatsoever.
What about somebody that you're benching?
I'm rolling out Robbie this week, so I wouldn't say him.
You love Robbie Anderson.
I love him this week. I think this week is a good week for him. I think the Giants team is terrible. I mean, I'll bench Darnold. People want to start Darnold. I have not sold on him as a quarterback. I had him in the Jets for 3 years. I still don't trust him. I don't see the high ceiling that everybody thinks he has. Sure, he's had some good work on his legs, but without Christian McCaffrey, he's been an absolutely horrendous quarterback. He looks just like he did for the first 3 years in New York.
Yeah, I'm going to roll out Chuba Hubbard. The position is so thin. I think he's a guy that he's a running back one. He's going to get the touches. He'll get the receptions. He's just a guy I think you're going to roll out every week as long as McCaffrey's not there because of how thin that position is and the injuries that we're currently dealing with. And as for a bench, Giants wide receivers, I know Shepard could get the volume, but he's banged up. Slayton, I'm not sold on. I'm benching all Giants wide receivers unless you have to play like Evan Ingram. If you're out with Darren Waller, I wouldn't play any Giants wide receivers. I don't know if I'd play any Giants. I don't think I'd want to start Daniel Jones. I don't think I'd want to start Devontae Booker. I don't think I'd play any Giants if I'm being completely honest with you. Dolphins and the Falcons. I am rolling out Jalen Waddle. This is a Jalen Waddle big-time game. The Falcons' defense is horrendous. They have the worst secondary in the NFL. They give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. Put Jalen Waddle in there. I think he has a chance of being a top 5 fantasy wide receiver this week. The position is so loaded. Maybe not. Maybe top 10. Maybe I'm hyping him up too much, but Jalen Waddle should be in your lineups this week. And you know what? Tua. I'm going to say Tua's a start. If you're in a 12-man league and you need to play somebody – yes. Okay, if you're in a 12-man league and you have Russell Wilson, who is your backup that you drafted? Maybe it was Trevor. Well, guess what? Trevor's on bye. Who are you rolling out there? Who's on the waiver wire? You're in a 12-man league. Start Tua this week. This is the 1 week. This is a prove-it week for Tua. He goes out there and has a stinker. He's not going to be on any fantasy rosters next week. This is a prove-it game for Tua. I'm putting Tua on the board. Let's see what he does.
Deshaun Watson will be there within the next 3 weeks. I'm not starting.
That'd be awesome. If that's true, I will buy a Deshaun Watson Dolphins jersey and I'm rocking it on the show. Fins up.
I will not be doing that. I'll be disappointed knowing Josh Allen and him are in my division. Someone I'd bench. Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson. He sucks. Bench him. Start Kyle Pitts and Mike Gesicki. It's National Tight End Day. They're going to get some big games for you, some injuries at the tight end position. Both of them locked and loaded, going to have some nice matchups, some nice games.
All right, Jets, Patriots. I'm just going to say bench everybody. Like maybe Damien Harris, but I'm not playing anybody in this game. They're all benches to me.
I'm playing Damien Harris. I'm playing Michael Carter, and I'm playing Jacoby Myers. Everybody else can hit the bench.
Yeah. All right. Did I miss a game? No, I did not miss a game. Let's jump to the Giants one. Bengals, Ravens. This is a good one.
This will be a fun one.
I talked about it on the show on I think it was Friday. I'm thinking about benching Jamar Chase. I think the other receivers may get a little bit of work in this one. I'm not sure how much. It depends on your receiver situation. He's probably been too dominant to bench. But if you only because of how deep this position is, I would consider it. I'm not saying he's an automatic bench, but when I look at this game, I am not benching Hollywood Brown. I am not benching Joe Burrow, who's been great. I know the Ravens defense is tough. I'm not benching him. I guess you could say bench Tyler Boyd. I mean, he's not been great either from a target fantasy perspective, but to me, like Chase is my big, like, I think he has big bust potential this week. I think he goes out there. Something has to give here. It's like the immovable object versus, the irresistible force. Chase is going to go out there and either prove that he's an alpha, and I think he is an alpha. He'll either go out there and he's going to have a really great game against these Ravens and the Bengals will show out, or maybe he gets double teamed and Burrow's to go to a couple other guys. So I'm treading lightly on Jamar Chase this week. I would not play him in like daily fantasy and redraft the regular lineups. Yeah, but I'm treading lightly on Chase.
Joe Burrow is not going to have a lot of time to throw this week, and every matchup he's had where Jamar Chase has succeeded and had a phenomenal week has been against a poor pass rush. It's been against Jacksonville, Green Bay, and Detroit. Those are the last 3 weeks, and in all 3 of those weeks, he saw his most receptions of the year, 6, 6, and 4. That's where he's finding his production. Baltimore puts pressure on the quarterback. I trust T. Higgins to have a bunch of targets this game on those short routes. Tyler Boyd, I'm not playing him, but he's someone that I think offers a safe enough floor in this game. Jamar Chase has huge bust potential, and you really do need the deep bomb. And he's delivered most of the year so far, but I still don't trust him from a perspective when I look at how his numbers translate to how productive he's been in fantasy. Like, he's had the most inefficient productive year out of any wide receiver over the past decade, and he's a rookie. So it's such a flyer every single week, and it feels like he just manages to hit the flyer every week. This week, I don't trust him against Baltimore's defense.
Yeah, T. Higgins is my big play for this week for the Bengals, and Marquise Brown's another one. Lock him into your lineups. Eagles, Raiders. Jalen Hurts and Hunter Renfrow are my big-time starts for this one. I think Hurts is somebody you could comfortably start every week. The Raiders' defense is not a great defense, and Hunter Renfrow has been great this season. He's been a good flex option. He's scored more than 12 points most of his weeks. The Eagles' defense is horrendous. The Eagles' team is horrendous. They got to blow that whole thing up over the offseason. So I would start Hunter Renfrow comfortably this week. And as for a bench, Eagles running backs, they should not be played at this point. Or receivers. Devontae Smith is not the problem, but it's definitely not the solution. I would bench him too.
Dallas Goedert, lock him in. No Zack Ertz there. Now he has, no ceiling at all. Zack Ertz was his limitation because Ertz was playing just as many snaps, and Hurts this year liked him a lot more. I would trust Dallas Goedert to go out there and have you a day. Has the upside of a top 5 week every single week that Zack Ertz is not there. From the Raiders side of the ball, Waller's dealing with that injury. Give me Henry Ruggs. Eagles do not put pressure on the quarterback. Derek Carr is going to have time to throw in this game. The offense moved like an absolute unit, no problem last week without Gruden. No concern for me there. Henry going to get that target 2-3 times this game, and if he delivers on one half of the week.
What about Lions and Rams? For me, it's Deandre Swift for the Lions as the only playable one. I'm benching Jamal Williams. I'm benching every receiver on the Lions. The Lions are no good.
If you're dealing with the bye week problems, lock in Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has been a phenomenal player. He looks great on the field and is just not translating to numbers. They are going to be behind very early in this game. Matt Stafford is going to light them up. This should be a massive game for Amon-Ra. Even with the Jalen Ramsey concern, they move him around the field. They don't leave him. They're not going to leave him on Ramsey's side. They're going to rotate the ball. They put him in motion. It sets up a perfect position for St. Brown to go out there and have a good game. Someone I don't like this week is Robert Woods. This is a very favorable matchup, but Woods delivers on those deep bombs, and I just think that they're going to be running out the clock for the entire second half of the game. I could see them taking their foot off the gas pedal, and I don't like Woods' value unless he delivers on a deep shot.
On the other side, Daryl Henderson. Daryl Henderson's a must start, I think. Henderson, running back too, lock him in. He's a big start.
Henderson should finish as a top 5 running back. We said it 2 weeks ago or last week against the Giants game, and he absolutely delivered. When the Rams have a favorable matchup, they run the ball, they get you to clock out the game, and they get a first down every single time. They get you to the end zone. That's why he's going to deliver, and in this matchup, he's going to do the exact same.
Yep. All right, Texans, Cardinals. AJ Green's my big start. He's been a solid wide receiver 2 option for Kyler Murray. The Texans defense is horrendous. I think this is a game that AJ Green shows out. I think it's a game that DeAndre Hopkins shows out. The Cardinals, I think the spread is like minus 17.5, and I took the Cardinals in my spread pool. Like, just, they're going to win by that many points. So I'm going to start all Cardinals wide receivers. My bench is Zack Ertz. I don't know how much of the playbook that he knows yet. I think he's kind of touchdown dependent. I don't know. From a route perspective and from a play call perspective, they might try to just get him a couple end zone looks. So I think he's end zone or bust. I'm not playing Zack Ertz this week. Next week I'll play him, but I think I'm going to temper my expectations for Ertz this week.
I think you're going to hear the commentators say, Zack Ertz, national tight end game, just traded here. Touchdown on the very first drive of the game. I think they look to move him in early. I think they say, Zack Ertz, we love you here. We want you as part of this offense. And they welcoming him in with warm arms with a tutty on the first drive of the game. I'm not worried about Zack Ertz. I'm not worried about Rondale Moore. I'm not worried about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not worried about any single Cardinal whatsoever. I'm starting every single one. No problem. Even Chase Edmonds and James Conner, I've been low on the two of them all season long. I think both of them could go deliver a huge game this week. Kyler Murray was the only one I'd be concerned about because they're going to be running the ball for the second half of the game as well. But Kyler Murray's just too talented to bench. So I'm not benching him, obviously.
All right, Bucks and Bears. I am starting Darnell Mooney this week. The Bears, the Bucks defense is tough, but the secondary is terrible. I don't know anybody in their secondary because they're either hurt or they're not playing too well. So I'm playing Darnell Mooney this week. He's Justin Fields' favorite target. He gets like 6+ targets a game. I think he has a chance at a deep shot if that offensive line can give Justin Fields more than like 2.5 seconds or 1.5 seconds, whatever the number is. But I think he could get a deep shot here. As for benching, Damien Williams is coming back and Khalil Herbert's still there. I don't know which one to play. So unless you really need to play one, I'm just benching both of them because the Bucs front seven is really, really tough and I want no part of it.
The Bears have ran the ball about 35 times a game ever since Matt Nagy gave up play calling, regardless of their matchup. I trust them to run the ball. I love Tyler Johnson in this game. If you need him for DFS, as Nick said, the number's probably very low because we didn't know about the AB news until after DraftKings released the numbers. He should be a good play. If you need someone in your league, I'd play him. My concern is Chris Godwin. I don't like Godwin as a receiver. I think that they split the ball way too much between everybody. They're starting to become a lot more defined at the running back position. But when Antonio Brown was there, the concerns were still there. Godwin could go up and have your big game, but I just think that there's always going to be a ceiling for him, Mike Evans, and Antonio Brown in this offense. And the only one that's really busted through that ceiling has been AB. Godwin's yet to do that with Antonio Brown on the field. So I don't trust Godwin to have a big week, even with AB off the field. I don't trust him to break that ceiling. I think he has more of a safe floor in this matchup.
Colts 49ers Sunday Night Football. You are benching every 49er not named Deebo Samuel. That's all I got. And for a start, Michael Pittman. That's my start against the 49ers.
I completely agree. But if Ayuk is on your waiver wire, keep him on your bench. Coming off the bye, they're going to look to rework this offense. I think Ayuk this week will either have a massive game off the bye or will have a horrendous game off the bye, and you'll know your expectation rest of the year. So I'd look to roster him on your bench. If he has a massive game, you should be so happy that you were the one that stole him off the waivers.
And lastly, Seahawks and the Saints. Alvin Kamara, lock. Jameis Winston is a lock. I am benching Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, I unfortunately can't bench Lockett, but Lockett would be the guy that I would sit. I know Nick doesn't like Alex Collins in this game. I like Alex Collins. I think he's more talented than most defenses. I think he shows that again this week. And I like Marquez Callaway this week. Seattle cannot stop the wide receiver position. They did a good job putting pressure on Big Ben. Jameis Winston's got the bigger arm than Big Ben, though, and he's going to shoot his shot, whenever he gets his chance. So I like Marquez Callaway this week.
All righty. That is our show for this week. Thank you all for joining our live show. Again, we do this every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find the Twitter and the Facebook and YouTube Primetime Fantasy Podcast. The Twitter is PrimeTimeFFPod. Instagram, TikTok, PrimeTimeFFPod. Our shows that drop on Tuesdays and Fridays, you can find on any podcast platform, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Google Podcast, Anchor, anywhere else, and also the video version on YouTube. Thank you all for joining. Best of luck in week 7, and we will talk to you guys on Tuesday.